Hi, I'm Jake Stone. Welcome to Music New South Wales seminars for the month. This one is called Please Like Me, and it's appropriately enough about social media and self-promotion. But hopefully we'll cover broader ranging topics than that, because everyone here does a good job of that kind of thing in different areas of their career. This is Melody. Melody works for Bossy PR and music management, and they look after Laneway Festival and Chet Faker and a bunch of other very big acts. She's very young. You 22?
23.
23 now. Happy birthday. She's been doing this for quite a while, and hopefully she'll be able to shed some light on what it's like working in a PR agency that deals primarily with music and how that might advantage you as a musician or artist or whatever you are. This is Victoria Sweetie Zamora. She has worked in both radio for FBI and also for Bossy at one point, but now works for Remote Control Records, who do a lot of things and publicise a lot of artists. She primarily works in PR there also. So if you like Banks, then perhaps you've heard of her.
We don't look after Banks.
Not anymore? Oh, sorry. Okay, so it wasn't her, it was her. That's Claire Bracken. She works for Pedestrian TV Jobs, and they do a job section, which she runs. No? Okay, but works there.
Well, close enough. I mean, I am one of the 3 public, editors for Pedestrian, so we take a lot of, the PR, music, pictures and all that kind of stuff, and we decide what goes on the site. But also, I, help launch jobs, so I know about jobs.
We'll be talking about jobs quite a lot with her. This is Tom Ballard.
Hello.
He is famously the host of Tom and Alex on Triple J and also Reality Check on the ABC, and is a stand-up comic pretty much constantly. He will tell you about publicising himself in his various guises and dealing with the public, as he's had to do for quite some time. That's Dom O'Connor. Dom is very young, and he...
Thanks, buddy.
That's okay. And like Melody, he was associated with Music New South Wales for quite some time. And Nick also, and worked his way up into a position at Laneway and Lunatic Entertainment, who put on Laneway Festival and manage a bunch of artists. Dom is good at getting around the music scene and knows everyone, and also knows kind of how to talk to them in a way that ensures that he's remembered but not offensive. Which is a very difficult line to tread in music. And then there's Nick Kelly, right up the end there. Nick is also an extremely hardworking young person, and has taken over hosting on CFM on breakfast. Mornings, pardon me. And then also does Today FM over the weekend. He runs Project U, which is a pop website that publicises new talent internationally and often breaks news stories here in Australia for pop artists. And he's pretty much constantly looking for stories, looking for social media things to retweet or tweet, and he's aggressively involved in that world. So it will be interesting to hear from him about do's and don'ts. Everyone on this panel has an individual story to tell about how they got their start in the entertainment industry. And I'd like to ask you about yours. If you feel like jumping in, please let me know.
I started when I was 14, so 6 months ago. So when I started writing the All Ages column in the Brag, that street press that you see at places. So I did the All Ages column for that for about 6 months. And that led into doing the All Ages segment on FBI, which is a station just down the road that Sweetie and Melody also work for. Doing that segment there turned into doing all-nighters at FBI, which turned into me doing Thursday afternoons on FBI. And from FBI, I got hired by Laneway Festival. And I also did some work for the Oxford Art Factory for about 9 months. I quit 30 minutes ago, so that happened. And that's about it, really.
I reckon my start is pretty similar to Dom in that I still listen to FBI a lot, but before I started volunteering there, I used to listen every day. I heard a call out for producers and presenters, which I responded to, and then started producing the Avos show. This would have been back in 2006. And then, through that, actually found out that there is a job called music publicity, and so through FBI, producing, became a presenter, then found out about working in the music industry, and it all went from there.
Does anyone feel like there was something special that you guys did in particular to distinguish yourself from the various candidates who were kind of stepping up to those entry-level roles? Like, was there something that you brought to that was personality-oriented or more savvy with certain things that kind of...
It's just not saying no ever to anything. You know, for example, in FBI, just from like a presenting point of view, you start off doing all-nighters when you're a presenter, and you know, occasionally when you're an all-nighter, you'll get, oh, does anybody want to do lunch today or something like that?
Yes. You just say yes.
You just got to say yes to everything, put it sort of above a social life or doing other things, and, you know, just work hard at it. Treat it like any other job and not as a hobby, I guess.
I also think, like, volunteering somewhere like FBI, you go in and you're like, okay, cool, this is my volunteer position and I'm going to be a volunteer producer. But inevitably there are emails that go around which is like, hey, we're running a stall at Newtown Festival and we need people to take sign-ups for new subscribers. And you're like, of course, how can I help? And they're like, hey, we need to run this. Sure, I'll help too. And eventually you just sort of get experience in so many aspects of that company that you learn so much more than what you had originally gone there for.
Did you find that you were maintaining your kind of online personality that whole time? Like, I know, you know, I sometimes see your Twitter and see a lot of stuff there that's kind of like not really work. It's sort of work related, but it's sort of chat as well. And people not chat in the sense that it's shit. I mean, it's in the sense that it's just chatting. And that seems to be like a nice accompaniment to your working personality. People can kind of see that side of you while you're developing your working relationships as well. Would you say that that's an important part of kind of of saying yes to everything now?
Yes.
Great.
Sorry. No, you go. Sorry. Okay.
Fine.
I would say as well, like what you were saying before about personality. I remember like applying for like my job at Pedestrian, and I was working at some advertising agency, and my boss was like a legit psychopath, and so I was just really keen to get out. So I kind of just went balls out on the application and just like I showed some personality, and it ended up that was what like differentiated me. They were just like, oh, you seem like a normal person, instead of just a like to whom it may concern kind of vibe. Like, so it is distinguishing yourself immediately, like just putting something in it. Because one thing I always have learned now is that if you don't like the company, like if they're not into your vibe, you're not going to have a good time there. So like if they're not liking what you're putting down.
Tom, you picked up a job very young with Triple J, kind of from a regional centre straight into the city, right? Like, I mean, that sort of happened straight out of school for you guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess my experience is sort of relates a lot to competitions, which I'd kind of give a shout out to. I'm sure you're all familiar. There's a million competitions sitting around for young artists, whether it's in the comedy world or the music industry. I did Class Clowns, which is the high school comedy competition that the Comedy Festival runs, the Melbourne Comedy Festival runs, and then Raw, which is the sort of adult version of that. Triple J supports Raw, and the station manager at Triple J saw me in the final in 2006, and from that basically approached me and asked if I was doing any radio. Alex Dyson and I were doing community radio on Warrnambool, and we sent in their tape, and it kind of went from there. So I think the whole saying yes thing is really relevant to that, is that everything is a networking opportunity, and I don't want to sound like a fucking wanker when I say that. It can sound really gross to view everything like that, but like genuinely getting out there and meeting other people, going to events, as Sweetie was talking about, that's genuinely how you meet stuff. The people I met doing Raw comedy, both my fellow competitors are still my friends, and we still work together in the comedy industry, and yeah, that's how I started at Triple J, is just by doing that comp. So, you know, Triple J unearthed a whole bunch of other music industries, websites, radio stations, run a whole bunch of competitions, and I just think that if you think you're ready, you're really proud of the music that you're making, and you want people to hear it, there's just absolutely no reason why you shouldn't submit like crazy for all that stuff, because that's how things started for me.
Yeah, I mean, Blue Juice managed to continue to survive for about 4 years based off winning Music Oz some time ago, which was money enough to record to then... So, I mean, even if you're like, I don't know whether we should enter that competition in regional Tasmania that has nothing to do with us and is actually run by Nazis, just do it, because chances are you've got an edge to those Nazis.
No, don't do that one.
Don't support Nazis, but take their money.
Yes.
If you take one thing away from this seminar, it is that.
Take money from Nazis.
But take their money. I think it's really interesting, going back to that point of how to sort of stand out. I've always noticed, and I think this is the thing that's made I'm not going to say made me so successful, because that's really wanky, but like made people notice who I am. I think it's just honestly by being yourself, and I think people get being yourself confused with being quirky for the sake of being quirky. I've always, on social, in person, whatever, just totally been open 100% about who I am and what my sort of vibe is, and I'll never come across, conceited or anything. And I think I noticed that regardless of whether it's people I'm bringing on to write for my website, whether it's people I'm connecting with in the industry, if it's new artists that I'm finding, I often find that a real personal sort of approach, an individual approach, if you're a band, it's often good to get, individuals from the band to have their own personalities and characters. And I find that if you're yourself, I'm going to be interested, and then the rest will sort of speak from that. So your achievements and your successes kind of build around that personality that people like. And I think people are only going to like your personality if you're real.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that, like, you get so many demos at Triple J, obviously working there constantly, and the ones that stood out to me were the low-cost DIY ones, where I felt like this wasn't sent to me by a publicist, but it was sent to me by a, enthusiastic young artist. I still remember Japanese Wallpapers demo that he sent in like this felt little CD case that he'd made himself, and clearly spent so much time and wrote this really lovely note and said that he liked our show, which fed my ego, which is what I'm after. So you remember that stuff, it stands out, so, and particularly, if you want to keep costs low, and obviously you don't have a giant music label behind you necessarily to fund those demos and stuff he's sending out, that personal touch, I think, as you say, sets you apart.
I think that also works on a smaller level than, radio airplay or something like that. I booked in the Oxford Art Factory in the little side room, the gallery bar there, for a while, and the bands that stood out to me were the ones that, they didn't bullshit, they were just honest. They sent me their songs, the songs are good, they told me they'd played shows before, and there's a very right way to sort of pitch to music people, and I think you need to learn that, because I don't know about everyone else here, but you guys just must see 1,000 emails a day where it's just badly written and you don't even want to read it, So it's just about learning how to write well, so people that are interested will get interested, I think.
I was just also going to add that it's very transparent. Like, you can kind of tell who is bullshitting and who's kind of faking it. Because, the music does stand out, and like who you are will stand out when people meet you and when you play shows and everything. So it's really quite obvious if you get, I don't know where the conversation's going now, but when you get, bios that are really, really long, that kind of like slip in jokes and try and really kind of create like a, like a certain vibe, or and it's very just kind of obvious that you're just trying to dance around the point that your music's not that great. So the kind of music speaks for itself. And also when trying to get a job as well, I found that it's really draining to try and be someone that you're not as well. Like, you can't kind of keep it up for too long. And I think when I walked up into FBI one day, and actually that's when I met Sweetie during high school, and I couldn't really pretend to be anyone else because I'm just really shy and goofy, and that kind of just seemed to work, and I'm really glad it did, because I can't do anything else. But it's just really transparent. People can see through you quite quickly.
It's an interesting dichotomy that you say that you're shy, but you're working primarily in PR, but that actually works for you, because I think people can see that you're enthusiastic about the material primarily, and your interest is in the work, and you're keen to communicate that with them rather than necessarily having to be all like, hey, what's up about stuff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, like, you don't need to... I mean, it's not about me, it's about the music, and you can just send the music and they'll listen to that. And, I mean, pitching kind of doesn't work anyway. Like you said.
I was just about to say, like, pitching... If I don't know about you already, like if I get an email about you and I don't know about you already, I'm probably not going to listen to what's been sent to me. I know it's harsh, I know it sounds harsh, but if a PR sends me a new artist that I haven't heard of before, it's probably not going to be worth listening to. Good music and good artistry as a whole, so having a good aesthetic, having the whole brand correct, stands out before PRs actually send it to me with 1,000-word emails.
In saying that, though, obviously, like, people do listen to music when you do send it, regardless of who sends it across. I think, I know I also work at FBI Radio, and regardless of what they're sent across, whether it's covered in glitter or if it's just a burnt CD or whether it comes in an elaborate box, they'll still give you a chance. So, I mean, it doesn't...
Even the glitter ones, really? The fucking glitter? My hands were like...
glitter ones.
It doesn't
was
happen
stained
that
for
often.
weeks. Don't do glitter. That's my tip. That's my one tip. Don't support Nazis and don't send glitter. These are my things.
It's often not the case that people send glitter, but if you do, we'll still listen to it. But yeah, I mean, it's mostly just about the music, so.
Perfect. That said, I just wanted to talk about some of the hilarious no's or nopes that have occurred during the time that you've been working in your various jobs. I kind of thought we might talk to you a little bit about some great job applications or things that you've seen posted that you're just like, wow, that is just exactly the wrong way to do this social media thing. And I figured everyone, whether it was in PR or otherwise, would have, or text line. Just there would be some interesting stuff that you've seen go on behind the scenes that I'm sure these people would want to know about and possibly avoid doing themselves.
So many bad ones. If we think about, with respect to the people who sent them, in terms of job applications, there have been people just put terrible information in there. They put their marital status, they put horrible watermarks on it with Edwardian script, and they just get it so wrong on so many different ways.
Silly, fancy, unreadable fonts. Don't.
Yeah. Don't do it in wingdings.
Because when you're going through job applications, you're going through we had a job at remote control going what would be maybe a year and a half ago now, and we had to go through 100 or something applications, and the ones which you could read, which were clear, were a godsend, and the ones which were ridiculously laid out, had silly font, had all these weird unnecessary pictures, you were just kind of no. Just please, no.
Yeah. But having said that, always make sure it's a PDF. No Word documents, please. Yep. Always add a bit of color. That's one thing we've found. If you're just going for Times New Roman blank page, if you're going for a job in the creative industry, you're trying to get people who are into brand, your personal brand. It's a really wanky way to say it, but if you show a bit of that, that already puts you miles ahead, because it sounds so simple, but so many people just do not even bother with that, and it sets you apart immediately.
On a laneway level, we get quite a few sort of people just cold emailing us every year, asking for a spot on the festival. So the best one last year was a reggae band from Britain that had 600 likes on Facebook, that had played 4 shows, sent us an email saying that for, I think it was $1,500 a show, plus flights, plus a comm, we could book them for Laneway Festival.
You had the opportunity to book them.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to maybe offer them something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
No, that's awesome. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's
I kind of wanted to book them just because, this would just be so weird if it happened. But
if you're in a reggae band, get used to rejection.
No, this is nothing against reggae. I have nothing against reggae. But white guys with dreadlocks are almost a no.
Sticky fingers exist, okay?
They do.
And they're really quite big. So
they do.
They're huge.
It took a long time, and then it happened, and now you can't tease white reggae bands anymore.
But I mean, on a festival thing, most bands that we book will be bands that we've sort of made contact with a little while before, maybe got them to do some supports for tours or something like that. And, it's just the sort of festival where bands, you don't have to be gigantic to play it, but you just have to be tried and tested. We booked Peter Bibby this year, who's a dude from Melbourne, and he's fantastic. He's not, he'd probably drag maybe 150, 200 people to every show, but he's great. And it's not a question of how big you are, but it's a question of he's great, he's got great press behind him, he's played the right shows. It's just about sort of gaining a sixth sense into making the right decisions to work.
So just be psychic is what Dom's saying. If you could just be psychic, that would be really helpful for him.
I think that's so important, Dom. Choosing, even in your very early days, choosing the right, Twitter profile picture. The small things can all add up and make a really big deal. And I totally agree with what Claire had to say about putting colour into, you just say it's all me,
Personal brand?
Yeah, personal brand, exactly. With PR, with press releases and stuff, when I get them, if they're over 75 words, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a guy who gets 300 emails a day from bands asking to be featured on the website, and that is probably minimal compared to what some website editors out there that you're pitching your music to actually get. If you want us to read your press release, under 100 words, bit of colour in it, we'll read it. The rest, if we don't know you, no one's going to listen to it. And I know FBI will, and I know there are a lot of radio stations that will, particularly on the community side. I spent 3 years in community radio, we listen to everything. But from a website perspective, we get smashed with shit. So we try to weed out the good from the shit. The good is stuff that we've heard of. The good gets sent to us elsewhere. The good gets brought up by other bands. The good gets brought up by, music tastemakers. We find it before it gets sent to us.
So we are talking kind of about levels here because, Nick is primarily discussing stuff on a breaking pop level, which is likely to be a little more commercial than, say...
Well, these guys here for the Moving Stills, is that correct? Yeah, they've just been booked to play Mountain Sounds. They've got probably... How many shows under your belt? Okay, well, I didn't think it was that many. But still, their presence isn't huge, but they do stand out for us. And they're not a breaking act at the moment. They're probably below that level at the moment, but they still stand out to us.
And just in case anyone was doubting Nick's Kung Fu, he just picked a band out of the audience and told you a lot about them, and I don't know that band. I mean, we've met, but...
Watch out for them. The Doctor played them
hectic.
On Triple J. So.
Anyway, so all this stuff is pretty relevant in terms of discussing how to publicise your band, how to kind of get in on a ground level. It seems like a lot of people here are saying, be conscious of the fact that you want to make an impression but don't oversell. Be part of the industry by picking up gigs and trying to move into that relatively small sphere of the industry in Australia, and try not to offend anyone in doing that, and just work hard and be good if you can be good. But we haven't really touched on how that triangulates around social media, and I feel like given the relative age group of the panel, given that all of you have worked in that area for some time, and some of you are making your livings or going to make your living out of that, can we talk a little bit about how to kind of triangulate those ideas around your presence socially, your presence online, and then also your job, and how that works together? Because I don't know.
This is Blue Juice. You were great.
Yeah.
Or did Stav do that?
I was either excellent or terrible based on my Facebook posts. So
Mostly terrible.
Okay, exactly. Yeah. But it wasn't Kanye levels of attention getting, but it was sometimes offensive. But I want to talk about what to do and what not to do. Things that are great to say and you remember as tweets and stuff that you posted and thought, that was a great one. Or things that were bad and you were like, oh, that was a confronting one.
If you're consistently putting out opinions and saying things that, could be libelous to who you work for or something like that, just take who you work for out of your Twitter bio or out of Facebook. There's no reason for you to publicize on Facebook who you work for apart from just humble bragging to people. So, and I think just be honest with who you are as a person. Don't be that person that's really loud and gregarious on Twitter and then in real life they're just a meek dude in the corner. Be honest, because people can see through that when they meet you in real life. One of the best things about Nick is he is exactly what he's like in real life as he's like on Twitter. And that's
really,
fantastic.
really loud and camp, online and here. If I scream yes on social, I scream it IRL as well. And honestly, and Dom, that's the kindest thing that anyone's ever said to me, so thank you so much. And Dom's exactly the same.
Yeah.
Dom's opinionated, and Dom won't, say shit online that he won't say to my face. Say it to my face.
But I say I say things that I stand by completely, but that Laneway wouldn't stand by. So I just took that I work for Laneway out of my bio or something like that, and I changed my name. So, because the last thing you want to do is cause something like a shitstorm just because you made some opinion when you were tweeting and you were drunk a couple nights ago. It's not the thing to do.
Do you feel like that can affect your chances if you're a band? I mean, given that everyone in this room is a musician, we tend to give a little social leeway to musicians, and I'm just wondering if that affects the way industry views them if they say something pretty nuts, or try and take Beck's award, and then they don't take it, and then you're like, good form, Kanye.
MusicNSW. There is a fine balance there between post. I mean, I hate going to a band's Twitter profile and you look through their entire feed and it's literally just them posting about gigs they've got. I mean, I can go to your website and I can look up at your gigs. I'm sorry, if that's all you're posting on Twitter, then for me anyway, as a fan and as someone in the industry, it's not something I'm into. I think bands like Ballpark Music, I think bands like the Griswolds.
The Preachers are really good as well.
Preachers are great.
Hockey Dad are fantastic at it, just because they're surfer dudes from Wollongong and they come across as surfer dudes from Wollongong on Facebook, and that's all you want from them.
That's great. I think Japanese Wallpaper is a really good example. I think, that personality and that joy in what they're doing and what other people are doing and sharing stuff and retweeting stuff, I don't know. I just think that if you're interested in connecting with your fan base and being as much as yourself publicly as you are in your music, maybe that's not your vibe. Maybe you're a tortured dark artist who hides in their bedroom and just releases something on SoundCloud every 8 years. That's cool too. But if that's not you, then I'd check out some of those other bands and put your personality in your social media. It's kind of what it's for.
I think there's a temptation from bands, particularly sometimes, to have this kind of, what do you call it when it's one person? Monotonous presence. Like, there's a temptation from bands to have one voice, but I think some of the most powerful bands are those that do have that one voice, but you kind of know who it is. If you look at the Preachers' Twitter, it's all Isabella, I think, mostly. Maybe. I don't really like the Preachers, so. But I love their Twitter account because it is personal, it is real, and it's one person, but it kind of feels like it's the whole band, and you kind of get a connection to that band. And that can start from way lower than where the Preachers are. The Preachers are on a huge, tip at the moment. But if you're just a band that is honest and real with everyone else, I mean, people are going to vibe that. People are going to hit follow, and then more people are going to hit follow and hit retweet, and eventually people know who you are.
Of all the bands here, how many of you on your band pages boost your posts? So put a little bit of money from a credit card onto every post? Yeah, see, that's the worst thing about Facebook. The way that their algorithm is set up, you have to put money into it or else it's going to be shown to like 12 people. It sucks and it's the worst, but even putting $2 or $3 into something will send it to like 900 people instead of sending it to 20 people.
If the content's good though, it will boost. If you look at All Day's presence, he puts no money into his profile and gets 1 million reach on every post because his content's good.
It works for All Day, but like if you've got 300 likes on Facebook and you're getting like 2 for every post, don't be afraid to just put $2 or $3 into it. It doesn't seem like much, but it goes such a long way. Like when 2 years ago the band I'm in started boosting our posts, you can check on our page. It goes from like 5 likes to like 40 likes. So it's like such a small thing to do, but it's so big for bands of a certain level to do.
I'd also suggest tweeting at Lady Gaga, everyone just for a retweet. Just, can I get a retweet? For every band that you know.
Send lots of nudes. That's the way to do
Carl
it.
Stefanovic's really good at it.
That is really practical,
he
and
retweets you.
I wanted to throw to these guys to see if that would affect the way you would then consider representing a band. If you were to look at their socials and go, okay, well, people are really liking this band's personality, they really like them without any additional PR support. Maybe we could work with this band if we like the music as well. Does that kind of change the way you feel about things?
I was going to say it's about whether or not you think the music's strong enough. You could have a great Twitter profile and that's awesome and you can be really smart and you can be really funny, but at the end of the day, for us as music publicists, we're not pushing people's personalities, we're pushing people's songs. So
I was going to say, I'd say I've never looked at a Twitter page or a Facebook page before we
Pick people
decide at all. It's completely to do with the music and actually mostly probably to do with the timeline of things, like when is your album coming out, when is your EP coming out, when do you have shows, and does that fit in with our schedule, to be honest. So it's just like, do we like it? Do we really like it? Can we, do we feel passionate enough to share it with people that we respect and we work with on a day-to-day basis? And if
can
that's
you also
the case,
do it justice too? Like another thing
Yeah,
with
that's
the
true.
timing is like, there are a lot of things that come across all of our desks which we would love to work on, but it's like, I can't give that as much time as I would want to and as much time as it deserves because we've already taken on X amount of projects. And unfortunately, sometimes you have to say no to stuff that you really want to work with and care about.
One of the most devastating things to ever happen was we got asked to work on the Arcade Fire tour or album or whatever it was, and we just didn't have the time, and I could have cried. It was really brutal. But yeah, that's right.
I was going to say, Claire, maybe there's something here about picking up people's stories from Twitter.
Yeah, definitely. From our point of view, because we are like the publishing side, we get like thousands of emails a day as well, and we kind of do it differently. Like if someone is trying to get in touch, like they want to pitch for an interview, or like say they're just pitching their band and we're trying to do like a wrap-up post of like best young artist to watch or something like that. One of the things I personally will do is it kind of depends who it's coming from. Like if I trust the publicist, if it's kind of a friend, like I've kind of made relationships with these people and like if I trust them and they'll be like, you'll like this, like seriously. It kind of is about relationships because we just don't have time to go through everyone. And then if they're kind of saying they're good, the first thing I'll check is their social media, just to kind of see what their vibe is, like, because...
To me, it makes sense. I mean, if you're in publishing, it's like there's stuff to report there. You know what I mean?
There's a story around it.
That's a good point. And also sometimes literally raw tweets. I mean, like, I don't know. I wanted to talk about this a bit with the panel in general. But this week, Mark Ronson tweeted about Kieran J. Callanan. Some people here might be friends with Kieran. And, we've always thought that Kieran was amazing for a long time, but not everybody knew about Kieran.